But you got into some discussions about some quarterback situations that I found fascinating. And the one that I found the most fascinating was Notre Dame, which is a team you got to spend a ton of time around during the playoff last year. So you got to see CJ Carr practice. You got to see Steve Angeli get thrown into the Penn State game. You got to see how these guys operate with their teammates and how that works. What have you seen so far, and how would you handicap that quarterback competition at Notre Dame?
Well, I think you have a couple of things. One, I don't know how anyone can disregard what Steve Angeli did in the Penn State game. And frankly, every time he's been on the field, the guy's been super efficient. And that, I think, gives me great peace of mind if I'm Marcus Freeman. I know what I got in Steve Angeli. I know he's super accurate. I know that my floor is going to be high because we've already seen him play in real games with real bullets flying. So I know my floor is high. Now, is my ceiling as high with him as it would be with CJ Carr? I don't know about that because I've watched both those guys throw side by side, and the more impressive arm is CJ Carr. But the most impressive arm doesn't always win out. I've seen guys that can throw at a country mile that are backup quarterbacks to guys like Chad Pennington because they kill you with efficiency. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see where they go. I mean, CJ Carr, from just a sheer arm talent standpoint, probably the most talented guy on the roster last year. But that doesn't mean he was the best option for Notre Dame. The best option for Notre Dame was Riley Leonard. But Riley Leonard didn't throw it as well as probably Steve Angeli if they're just going to have a passing competition against air. So I think it's all about kind of where the team is and where it could head. But I think there's a lot of things that factor into this decision for Marcus Freeman. And I'm not sure that it's one that is going to be made very easily as it probably stretches into the fall.
Yeah, it's so funny because I feel like the majority of people are just assuming that it's Carr's team.
And I understand that because everybody looks at star rankings and they get enamored with star rankings. And, this guy's the next one. He's the next great one. And Steve Angeli hasn't been a 5-star in years. I think that's premature, personally. Just knowing how much that staff last year, how much faith they had in Steve Angeli. And look, I made the comparison the other day. I'm sure all of you guys, and I don't know this for sure, so I guess I shouldn't say I'm sure, but have both of y'all seen Joe Burrow throw in practice? Like, has any of y'all? Yeah. So you went and saw LSU at practice, Andy. Like, how was Joe Burrow in practice?
Not what he looked like in the games. Not the magician that you see on Sundays
you watch
now.
Him, you're like, oh, he's solid. Pretty good. Yeah, that's fine. I'm not sitting there thinking like first overall pick. When I go watch Jamarcus Russell in practice, I'm like, oh my God. You know what I mean? Like that's just that's ridiculous.
Greg, maybe you were told this too. Like I remember being at Tennessee a few years ago talking to a coach, and this is when Hendon was still the starter. And the coach warns me, he's like, you're going to go out there and see Joe Milton.
Yeah.
And you're going to say, this is the best quarterback I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
But consider how they play in the games too.
And it's funny you bring up Joe Milton too.
I think there's people get very enamored with talent versus being good. It's not a both. You can't just because you have talent doesn't mean you're good. And just because you're good doesn't mean you have outrageous talent. You know what I mean? Like I think people have a tough time differentiating the two. And to me, it's a very different evaluation. Riley Leonard, total gamer. Like baller, you know what I mean? Captivates the locker room. Everyone will die on the field for him. Like he was amazing. But if I need to go with the most talented guy in the roster last year, he's probably not the guy. You know what I mean? But he's great at what was needed for that team. He's great being able to extend plays, use his legs, tough as nails running the football, short yardage specialist, goal line specialist, and super accurate on the underneath. So I look at where this program has now evolved to, and I think more than really anything, knowing Marcus Freeman's background as a guy that wants to win on defense, that wants to be aggressive on defense, I'm not sure he's against having a quarterback that he trusts in more of a game manager role. And I'm not saying Steve Angeli's that. All I'm saying is that when I watch Joe Burrow throw in practice, I'm somewhat underwhelmed. But when I watch him play in the game, my mind is blown. And I'm not saying that Steve Angeli's that. I'm just saying maybe he is, because Notre Dame did absolutely nothing for 38 minutes or for 28 minutes against Penn State. Riley Leonard gets dinged. In goes Steve Angeli, right down the field with tremendous efficiency and top flight accuracy. So I think this thing's a long way from being figured out. And I think anybody that is counting out Steve Angeli as being the starter next year probably just doesn't necessarily understand the dynamics in the room.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, 2,000 on Steve Angeli to win the Heisman.
Well, hey, the crazier bets have been made. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think
we weren't talking about Joe Burrow.
Might be the front runner there if I'm picking a Notre Dame Fighting Irish
Joe
player.
Burrow had an entire.
He might have to split some carries.
Joe Burrow had an entire year of starting as an average-looking quarterback before that happened too. Like Steve Angeli didn't play last year outside of a few series and what we saw in the playoffs. So it doesn't mean that can't happen. I just think that like the mindset with Steve Angeli is that he's not even going to win the job, let alone be great. So that's
and he might not.
Yeah.
He might not win the job, and if he does, he might not be great. I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that in limited action against real teams, he's looked very much in control.
If you're going to be in San Antonio for the Final Four, come by and see us. Whataburger is bringing us to San Antonio. We're going to have the Whataburger food truck. We're going to be set up across the street from the Alamo, not the Alamo Dome, but the actual Alamo Monument. We're going to be right down the street from that. And we're going to be there from 12 to 4 Central Time because we're bringing home the W with Whataburger. And you can do that too. Double points on your orders from Friday through Monday in honor of what's going on in San Antonio. Mushroom Swiss burgers are back. Holy crap. Have you seen this thing? With the creamy au jus sauce, with the double patties, with the grilled mushrooms, with the Swiss. It's glorious. And you got to get that before it's gone. But also, if you're throwing a big party, let's say you're at home and you're going to throw a big party for the game, get some Whataburger party packs, 10 burgers. You can have them with cheese, without. You can customize your fixings. You go grilled jalapenos, grilled mushrooms. You can do avocados. However you want to do that. You can do the Whata Wings party pack. And again, if it's April 4th through the 7th, double points on your order. So bring home the W with Whataburger.
And just knowing Marcus Freeman, knowing the value that he puts in the team, knowing how he wants to win games, I think having a guy that avoids mistakes, that's efficient, that makes good decisions, that's accurate on the underneath, that gets the ball out, I think those are qualities that he values. I think Steve Angeli has all of those things, and he might just be a freakish gamer that we don't know. We don't have the sample size to make that assessment, but he might be a gamer that has a level that we don't know about just yet. But we know if CJ Carr gets the job, we know what he's capable of because his arm talent's ridiculous.
And he's upset with him too. Like, he loves him. Marcus Freeman loves Steve Angeli.
Yeah, right.
Well,
I happen to think I've always kind of been in line to think if you're sticking around, you're sticking around for a reason. Not that promises have been made. You know what I mean? I don't think promises have been made, but Carson Beck waited 4 years for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's a handful of guys that if you read between the lines, and maybe Ty Simpson's that way this year at Alabama, I don't know. Like, you stick around for a long time knowing that we might only have 2 years to play, but it's worth it because those 2 years at that place might actually be more valuable than 4 years at a different place. So I think usually if you wait around that long, I'm always of the belief that I will lean in that direction towards the veteran because maybe they know something we don't.
Well, and I'm going to put you in Marcus Freeman and Mike Denbrock's shoes, Greg, because I'm curious how you would handle this. We know Notre Dame's going to have a good offensive line. I mean, we know this because guys who started for them in the national championship game hit the portal because they might not have jobs next year. So how would that influence your choice of a starting quarterback, knowing that you're probably going to be able to protect that guy really well?
I'm not worried as much about the offense. I think they'll be fine offensively. I think they'll run the ball really well. I think the O-line's got a chance to be great. We saw already with Jack, you saw in the bowl game how well he played, in the semifinal game how well he played, and he might be just an All-American in waiting. We'll see. I mean, granted, small sample size, but looked pretty good against quality competition. So I think the O-line's got a chance to be elite. We know the 3 hit a monster at running back. That's a no-doubter. I think they got 2 or 3 guys coming up at tight end they love, that they're excited about, even though they lose such a capable weapon to Mitchell. But I think that the offense is fine. The defense is what I'll be paying more attention to for Notre Dame this year, because if I need a high-powered offense to win games, unlike what I had last year, then that would have a pretty big impact on my assessment of the quarterback spot. But if I have an offense that if I get to 24, my odds of winning are 95%, I feel pretty good about what direction I might go. So I think it's really about how adequately did they replace some of the key departures off last year. And I know they had to play a handful of games down the stretch without big time personnel, but a lot of those guys that were lost, those 5 or 6 guys that were lost, 2 edge rushers, at times 2 defensive tackles, their best corner, their best safety now, Xavier Watts, who played the whole season but is now gone. I mean, they lost a bunch of guys throughout the course of last season, and the defense didn't drop off much. So I am cautiously optimistic that that group will always be good on defense as long as Marcus Freeman's there. Now, dude, defensive coordinator, but Marcus Freeman's still there. So I think it really depends a lot on how confident they are in being able to slow things down offensively, slow down opposing offenses. And we'll find out week 1. I mean, they have Miami on the road week 1. So let's load up and let's see how it goes, because I'm not sure many teams in the country have a tougher first 2 games than what Notre Dame has on the schedule this year.